Hey, it's Chris. What the heck is going on with Kickstarter right now? Right? Can't find games. All of a sudden they're on the hotness and the popularity. All of a sudden they're off. All of a sudden they're under the tabletop category. All of a sudden they're not. It's like Kickstarter forgot how to work in 2023, and it's really peeving me off these last 2 weeks for the roundup, right? Because searching by new, searching by popularity, searching by all, it just is a cluster fruitcake going on there. And what the heck are they doing with their system? What? Come on. Ridiculous, Kickstarter. Anyway, what do you need to know about the games that launched this week? Which ones I'm excited about? Which ones are surprising us? Which ones are achieving? Which ones are overachieving? Which ones are underachieving? Everything you need to know all in one short summary. Let's do it. I mean, right? For example here, I literally have looked at this page half a dozen times today. 2 of the times so far, Hollywood 1947 has popped up at the top. The other 4 times, it's been nowhere. And that also changes depending on whether you do tabletop or all categories. Look, all of a sudden, I go to all categories, Arborea is at the top. And where's Hollywood 1947? It's nowhere. What the deuce is going on, Kickstarter? I did nothing else, right? Like, everything else is the same. So they're screwing up something internally in that system, and it's making some of these games harder to find, and I'm guessing it's going to hurt backers because you see a large rush in the first 24, 40 hours in these bigger campaigns. If I was them, I'd be peeved off. If I was them, why isn't this working? Especially when we got some bigger ones coming next week, too. So, yeah, right? Let's get into the games. Speaking of that, though, with a side note right now, I can't even find Once Upon a Line. It was there all day, and now it's vanished again. Screwed up, Kickstarter. This is how you lose people. This is how you lose people to your competitor. Ridiculous. Angry rant over. I'm not really angry. It's just, it's irritating, right? As a consumer? Come on. Do better. Here we go. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Marvel United Multiverse. What do you need to know? As you can see at the top, I'm already pledging and backing. I told you that. I mean, fully transparent here. I'm going to have a full separate video breaking down why I think that's a mistake, why I think that's a great thing, and sort of all of those feelings in between. But what do you need to know about the actual campaign as we go into it right now in day one? Well, my email inbox is full of 14 updates from just day one already, less than 12 hours in. Which means we've hit 13 stretch goals already, as expected with the CMONs. With any of these, the best pledge is this core pledge. It's this multiverse pledge with the expansion right here, the Herald pledge. It gets you this expansion. This expansion is guaranteed to be most tested, most well-rounded, and most probably well accepted by everyone across the board. That's very true of the previous 2 expansions that are included in the base pledge from the first 2 campaigns. So if you are doing anything, do not back more than $100 on this. I don't care what the other expansions look like. I don't care what the other add-ons look like. You can always get them in the pledge manager, but you cannot back out of those monies pledged. Buyer beware. So what else do you need to know? Well, you have Galactus acting sort of like an apocalypse version of the expansion from Marvel United X-Men, if you will. Because what you're going to be doing is you're going up against 4 heralds, just like the 4 horsemen of death. And they're all going to be bringing different powers, different unique abilities, different ways of mitigating or affecting the board in different ways. And until you defeat them all, then you can't fight Galactus. Sound familiar with Apocalypse? Well, they've taken basically a page out of that playbook and modified it slightly and given you a different thematic incorporation, if you will. No Silver Surfer, but a couple other heralds you may recognize as well as ones you may not recognize. The other addition that this gameplay or this expansion brings into it is that you can recruit, you can draft any of the other villains in the Marvel Universe and have them act as heralds as well in the future. So it gives you additional gameplay modes from that aspect. What else is new though in this game? Well, what you're getting in this game is you're also getting a true solo mode where you can play as one character. You can play as one character because what you do is you pick 4 other characters, you take and rifle through their decks, grab 3 cards from their decks, and then shuffle and make a support deck. And then you flip up a certain number of those cards and you can choose them instead of the cards in your hand that turn to play as one of your turns. You have the supervillain mode, you have the superhero mode, and then you also have the equipment. The equipment mode is also new with this, but the caveat with the equipment is that if you're going to play caveat equipment mode, if you're going to play equipment mode, you have to play hard mode, meaning you have to take one of the 2 wild cards, the double wild cards in your deck, and take it out to be able to use the equipment. Now, one of the stretch goals, and this is sort of, again, a completely superfluous stretch goal, is they've said, oh, we're going to make this backwards compatible. You already freaking said you're going to make it backwards compatible, so I don't know that you need to actually make that a fake stretch goal. I mean, that's faker than most of these stretch goals. So 2 videos there that you can check out, the rule book's there. Here's the classic retail equipment that I said, and this is going to be just as it says, retail. The real question is going to be, what about stretch goals from their campaigns? What about all the expansions from their campaigns? What is that going to entail? My guess is they're going to Arcadia Quest this beast. Or if you're not familiar with that, they're going to offer an expansion like they did with sort of Mass Mora, where it made Mass Mora and Arcadia Quest compatible back and forth, essentially. In other words, i.e., right? And so you've got a few people here that I'd recognize that are in Marvel Snap, that are in Marvel Puzzle Quest, the other mobile games, and then they've got a few others here like Chew that I don't even recognize, or Songbird I don't even recognize. So that's going to be the dynamic, and some of these are clearly multiversal. Some of these aren't. Titania's not, Absorbing Man's not, Chameleon's not, Abomination's not. So we're getting a few of those, but this is not multiverse so far. And so that's going to be the real test of the 21 days and the 5 or 6 expansions. It's probably going to be 5. The 5 expansions that we're going to see, plus the deluxeifications that they always offer as add-ons too. That's where hopefully we see more multiverse. Because right now, not so much multiverse in action, but rather just name. So we'll see where that ends up. That's everything. Shipping is going to be whatever. You don't worry about shipping. Shipping is going to be a lot because you're going to have a huge freaking box. Probably like 2.5 feet long worth of box. So take that for what you will. That is Marvel United CMON right now. Again, I'll put out another video later this week, as well as probably towards the end of the campaign, detailing everything of why you should and shouldn't back. There you go. I mean, clearly the biggest winner, I didn't even find this for the first half of the day, is Hollywood 1947. This is from Facade Games. This has got $200,000 in the first less than 24 hours. And check out my video if you want. I talked about it. I mentioned my thoughts on it. It's just very solid. It's not going to surprise you with any mechanics. It's not going to do anything drastically new or different, but it's just really solid. I don't really have a whole lot of complaints about it. There's just not a whole lot to criticize whatsoever. And you know what? That's really good. That's really good. Some people are going to take that as, well, he's not jumping over the moon, praising this game. It was a really good game. It's a really fun game, period. What can you say that's better than it's a really fun game? It's different enough than all of the other Facade social deduction games that they put out there. The other big element that you need to know is that there's dice, and the dice are going to be rolling with this. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be assigned to one of either 2 sides, the Patriots, the Communists. Actually, there's a third slight side as well, the neutral. You need to get 4 films bid on to get the most votes to cause that film to be on your side. You don't know who's bidding what. You're going to have a hand of cards that you get to bid. Potentially, if you roll the die right and you can contribute, then you add one randomly into the pile, then you discard one after shuffling, and then you flip them over to see what's there. Each of the films also has a little bit of a starting value of Patriot or Communism as well, so you have to see how much of one or the other. It's not just based on the cards. There's an action that you get every single turn with an asymmetric ability of a job that you can take, or you can trade jobs, or you can manipulate all of the different factors that go into this game, and it just really works. It just works. It just works, and that's great, because if you don't have a social deduction game, this would, and this is probably the other biggest compliment I can give it, this would be one that I would say, this is a great one to start with. If you're looking at it and going, which one do I want? Like, this is solid enough for me to say, okay, like, if I pull out one of these 2 games, it's going to be this, it's going to be Deduction, Murder in Hong Kong. Just something that is basic, but a little bit of a step up, a little bit more deduction. There's no player elimination, and you always feel like you're engaged with this game. And so, yeah, it just works. Take it for what you will. You get the deluxe edition if you want. There's not a huge price point. It's $27 and $44 if you want the deluxe version. And if you want the expansion, though, that's really where it's going to cost you, because you're getting the deluxe version there with a little bit of everything there, and that's $74. Do you need everything? No, you don't need everything. It's different enough from all the other ones. No qualms about saying that. But for me personally, like, you have to have a group that plays these games a lot to get the value out of something like that. And so usually when I see bundle deals like this, I pass. Costumes are going to go along with this. And that's the add-on expansion that gets a new character into the game with Sketchbook of Costumes. So, you're probably not missing out a whole lot, but if they add any other things to go along with it, it's $27 on crowdfunding. You're not really going to get too much of a better price later. So Everything you need to know is on the page. Bitewing Games, I watched their video just out of curiosity, and they did a really, really stellar job of giving an overview. So if you want to give somebody a view on this video, go check out their How to Play. It's by far and away an absolutely outstanding production. So yeah, check that out, and there you go. Next up from Lucky Duck Games, we're doing Once Upon a Line, The Butterfly's Breath. And yeah, it's 200% funded. This is something uniquely different. It's completely uniquely different. You're basically doing a crossword puzzle narrative. And you're using a little bit of deduction and a little bit of just random guessing in how you're scratching off these letters from the board. You only have so many actions before you have to like reset your board, because you have these little tokens that you're going to be able to allocate to how many letters you want to scratch off in any certain direction off of a base word that you have available to you on the little map. And as you're doing that, you have to put them in the little action slots, and your action slots all fill up. Then you have to pull them all back, and then you have to scratch off one of the bad things. And there's going to be other ways that you scratch off the bad things. And as the bad things accumulate, your ability to scratch off letters and you know, the how many letters you can scratch off drastically goes down. And so it's sort of a press your luck over time sort of situation there with this game. And the engine that this builds is something uniquely different. Now you can see here on this picture, the main aspect of this is they have brackets on the ends of these letters to indicate that the word is complete or the word is not complete. And so if it's got like the two straight brackets, then that's a word that's going to be pulling a new card that's going to allow you to guess or find other words that are attached to it. Or if it's underlined on the card that you pull out, if I can pull up one of these here for a second. I probably won't find one now, but if you find one of those, then it means that it's attached to the card that you just did. But if it's not underlined, it means it's just somewhere else on the grid. You have different colors of words that you're going to be having to travel back and forth from, because you can only play off of or guess off of the color that you're in currently, the zone as they call it. It's definitely something unique and different. My biggest recommendation from my video above, if you want to go check that out, or if you just want my too lazy didn't watch summary, is that this game is cooperative, but it's probably best at 1 or 2, because 3 or 4, it's going to be collective decision making together, because even when you have multiple characters in this game, you're going to be choosing whichever character you want in whatever order. You don't have to alternate. It's not like every person gets a character and every person gets a turn individually and you have to rotate all around. No, there's nothing like that. Like, you could stay with one character for 6 turns in a row and then do the other character for 6 turns in a row, or 10 turns in a row and then come back. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason in that sense. And so I find with games like this, with games like Seventh Continent, which you know, has that sort of vibe, lower player counts are going to be much better. I don't think I would want to play this with 3 or 4. It would be more of like a group discussion, analysis paralysis concern. You're getting a good value with these Lucky Duck games. You're getting the extra expansion, I believe, that goes along with it, along with some of the deluxeifications for $40. So yeah, I mean, take it for what you will, and it's going to be solid. It's just whether or not any of these appeal to you whatsoever. The zone tiles that I talked about, the different action tiles that you're taking off of, and it just, like with the other Lucky Duck stuff, you're going to get a better value on crowdfunding. And if you want to wait and see if it's for you, great. But there's not a whole lot of wonderment with this game, right? Like, go watch someone's video, go watch my video, and you can see very, very simply and very straightforward how this game actually plays and what it entails. I would say watch a video on this one over reading the rulebook. I found the rulebook to be a little bit more abstract than, you know, some of the video if you want to see what it actually entails. And so that's probably one of the few recommendations I'd make this. And there's plenty of video down here. You can see how people do it. And even these GIFs give a good job of how to play it. So you can look at like the 37 videos, including mine down here, that are all on the page, or you can just read the rulebook like I do every time anyway. So take it for what it is. The shipping is going to be fine for what it is as well. I mean, it's just how much other stuff is going to be added, because it's a little bit higher than I would have expected, but take that for what you will. But clearly, for a game that's doing something completely different, that is doing something that we've never seen before, it's experimenting, that's going out in a good way as a scratch-off lotto crossword narrative game, right? Like, that combination of things you've ever heard come out of someone's mouth talking about a board game, it works. It's solid, but it's not going to be for everyone. So just know what you're getting into. It's easily going to break 6 figures by the time this ends. So good on them. Good job, Lucky Duck Games. Once Upon a Line. There you go. Next up, we're going over to Arborea. From Alley Cat Games. This is sort of your mid-weight worker placement game in the lines of something colorful-wise, but also depth-wise, along with Bitoku. Bitoku is mentioned on this page as this is being the Bitoku killer. as if, you know, you actually like that description that another game phases out another game in your collection. I don't know how I feel about that, but the special mechanism that they have going on here from the worker placement side of things is you put your worker placements on tracks, and as you keep your workers on those tracks for longer, they get moved along whenever they get moved. So you can have a couple workers on the same track, you can have a couple workers of different peoples on the same track, and as they move along, they get better rewards the longer they stay on them. But there's also going to be consequence of not being able to place them elsewhere the longer you keep them on there in the first place. So how do you balance that? And how do you balance this, you know, extremely energetic graphic design as well? So very similar to Bitoku in that way as well. Now you scroll down here, you can see, okay, they talk about 1 to 5 players. You have a solo mode, you have working with other players or interacting with other players, avoiding pushing tracks or gain tracks movements by working together if you want to, sharing your resources as you go along. It's, you know, heavy. They say it's heavy like Autobahn with their previous game of 3.4. So pick up at Essen if you want. So what are you actually doing otherwise besides the generic description of the worker placement? You get an expansion here as well that goes along with it, with the Midnight River, with new actions and new rewards, and you're getting deluxeifications, and you're getting it slightly earlier, and you're getting it for probably a slightly better price point. I'd say the trickiest part is down here when we get to the stretch goals and what else is going to be, because you typically see more of deluxeifications to go along with the exclusivity here, and you've got a few of those, but you also have a couple extra cards and a couple extra gameplay content things that are at the higher levels here, and we'll see what that entails by the time the campaign ends. If you head over to Board Game Geek here, you can see the rules that are listed. They have 2 files. They have one for the main game, and then they have another file for the solo and the expansion. And so it's really not as long as I was expecting for the weight that they compare it to. So much more decision making rather than mechanics that you're actually having to learn, because the rulebook itself is only 13 pages here, and you can kind of see, okay, on your turn, you're sending these villagers out onto the action tracks, which are the time elements that you're going along, and you're either having to put one out or you're having to move it along the track. And as you're going, you're then going to be activating them in some way, shape, or form to get the resources that they've already passed through. Each different area or biome, as they call it, is going to have different amount of rewards, and you can get those rewards anywhere from 1 to 3 times depending on where you are and how you activate and which action you're taking in this way. So, I mean, this is going to be really tricky. This is a little bit heavier than I'm used to, but this reminds me a little bit more of the unconscious mind weight, and so that's why, as I'm, you know, was surprisingly enjoyable with Unconscious Mind, that is the appeal for me right now as well, because I also, spoilers here, I also have a copy of Bitoku back on my shelf, which I have to review at some point as well in the future. So, you know, it'd be awesome to be able to compare those, because, you know, hands-on with a game like this, for me personally, is going to be the only way that I know, okay, which of these mechanisms do I like? How do I like the interaction? Is there enough interaction for me? Or if you're like a lot of other the heavy Euro worker placement type of games, you don't want a lot of interaction. You like solo solitaire strategy, perfection, perfect information. I am not one of those people, so I need to have some of that. And does it have enough for me? Does it have too much for me? How many mechanisms are included? How many mechanisms are, you know, there for the sake of being in there? I mean, even with Unconscious Mind, like there was 1 or 2 that I was like, okay, I don't really see these as much as important. How does this compare? And again, I think hands-on is always the best way for me personally with something like this that falls outside of my strength. But the rule book is relatively concise. It's relatively straightforward. It's got enough examples that you can read through this in like 5 or 10 minutes and know a little bit more in terms of whether or not this is like it for you. And they've got videos out there that you can check it out already in addition to. So the question just is, do you want to get this game early? Are you going to miss out on any of these exclusives? Do you really like that aspect of things? I'd say I don't know how well the previous games like Autobahn have been received. I think Autobahn was a sort of a mixed blessing. I think Tinner's Trail was also from Alley Cat Games. So very similar. You know, people either really liked it or were kind of meh on it. And so this one honestly has more appeal to me than either of those other 2 that I mentioned. And theme, especially in these situations, has the ability to draw me in, and the fact that they're doing something different again with these tracks that are moving along. I'm not familiar with a lot of these types of games, so you guys can tell me how wrong I am about this being unique or not in the comment section, but it gives me a different vibe than a lot of the other stuff I've seen on crowdfunding, at least in the last 2 or 3 years. So the price point is, for the Kickstarter exclusive edition, is only $57, which is, you know, for a deluxe Euro game with this weight, usually about half the price. So take that for what you will as well. Is it going to be as good? Is it going to be half as good? Hopefully not. I don't think so. But definitely give this one a look-see. This is probably my sleeper hit of the week because already it's at $60,000, which is not insignificant, especially from Alley Cat Games. So take that for what you will. There you go. Next up, we have AEGIS Combining Robots Season 2. And this is another one that's flying under the radar. This might be the other sleeper pick of the week because of the combination of like battle robots and Zords and Power Rangers and combining your cards to make like a Super Megazord, right? And this is the other surprise of the week, if you will. Again, $40,000 may not seem a lot for you, but when you go back to Season 1 over here and you see how long ago this was, and that they only had, what is that, 679 backers for $52,000, they are almost surpassing that in 24 hours. That's awesome. I love seeing that from indie games. I love seeing that from this aspect of things, because what it means is they've done something right. They've put out a product that people like, and they've put out a product now that looks like a 2.0. The only question is when you're putting out second ignition here with a new game that's a new standalone, it reminds me, like I said in the preview video last week, of compared to Season 1 that is reprinted and improved, you can have both. You can have either, you can have one or the other without any drawbacks, but is it going to be similar to the comparison I used last week of Aeon's End War Eternal? Is War Eternal the 2.0 version? Is Marvel United X-Men versus the original 2.0 version versus 1.0? Dice Throne second season better than Dice Throne 3 season 1. Dice Throne season 1 had to get re-rolled because 2 was just much better based on the fact that they knew what they were doing more, they put more experience into it, and it just worked out a whole lot better. And that's what this gives me vibes of as a 1 to 6 player game. And so the premise is essentially just that, right? Like you have 5 bots, you get your pre-made team, or you can build or draft however you want to do it, which is great. 5 different classes, and you combine them and unite them based on how you want to do that going along the board. You're doing that via spending energy, you're moving, attacking, you're combining, and you're trying to overwhelm your opponent before they can do the same to you. What are you getting though in the new second edition? New rosters, new commanders, and just more streamlined. And that's probably the biggest thing I would say with a game like this is because sometimes these can be a little more nuanced, because these skirmish games can have a little bit more to them, streamlining a game like this to allow it to get to the table a lot faster and a lot easier is what makes it just stand out sometimes more than the other things, because this is also a very crowded genre in the first place. All new way to play, arena mode, solo mode if you're a boss battling soloer, and they have the rules and the videos all over on the page so you can check it out. And I just pulled up the rules here for a quick second just to give you a little bit more of an in-depth brief overview, is that you have a certain number of classes, they're going to have a certain number of attributes, and even within those classes, all the robots are going to be uniquely distinct, and they're going to be sharing energy throughout your team. So you only have limited energy to move your 5 robots. How are you going to do that? What combination are you going to do? And then how is that going to be able to interact on the map against your opponent? The goal is to fight and win and knock out your opponent before the other person. They give you an overview of the 5 classes and how they can combine levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then how the tournament and how the head-to-head is going to go, a little bit of the background, including the commanders that are going to give you a little bit more asymmetry as you go along. Just going through the rulebook here, it gives me very similar vibes for Battle for Britannia, in the sense that this is a very streamlined version. I read through this rulebook, it makes sense, it's quick, it's easy, and you know what? It's got a lot of hidden depth and tactical nature in and of itself without having, again, like I mentioned with the previous, without having a huge overhead of rules to go along with it. That's also something that stands out nowadays because, you know, I think of like a game like Blood Rage or Ankh or Rising Sun, right? And I compare that to something along the lines of even El Grande, and I go, is more better? No, more is not always better. More sometimes creates more nuance, it creates more actions, it creates more opportunities, but you don't always need a 47-page rulebook when a 10-page rulebook will do, and the tactical depth is there without having to have all the different mechanics in order to give it in the first place. And so that's what I get the vibe of with this game. And so this is probably the sleeper hit that you have to take a look at if you're looking for something new skirmish-wise, because again, this is something different that we don't see a lot in terms of the combinatorial system that they utilize in this game versus a lot of the other skirmish games where it is, you know, asymmetric, it's, you know, 3 versus 3, it's 2 versus 2, it's MOBA, whatever you want to call it, but you're not getting a lot of, okay, I combine these to physically make a completely different situation that can turn the tide of the battle, and how does that kind of go? That doesn't happen nearly as often. So that's why you should give this one a look-see. What's the price point here for Season 2? Okay, second edition, $59. The new stuff is $79, but that's going to get you the core as well as the scenario book and an upgrade pack. So if you don't need the upgrade pack, then you're looking really at the $59, which again, you know, with the crowdfunding inflation nowadays, that's probably about what I would have guessed. You know, I would have probably preferred maybe 49, but 59 is not unreasonable with something like this, especially as a 2.0 version, especially from an indie publisher. So what do we got here? Just game contents. They're going 59 robots, and are we going to have any stretch goals? Let's see. I don't really know. Add-ons, ultra add-ons, guest add-ons. I like ultra add-ons, by the way. Shipping is going to be, $9. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. So what would you rather see? I guess that's probably where it is, right? Like, would you rather see $19 shipping for one box in the US and have it $49 price point? Or from a marketing standpoint, would you rather have $59 and $9 shipping? Because that's sort of what it reminds me of. So, it's a push for me. And looks like we're going to get a little bit of gameplay content with the stretch goals here. So, this reminds me, again, similarly to like Ivion, another game that is highly underrated, highly underutilized, and flying under the radar, but needs and deserves some more attention, just like Battle for Eternia, which just reminds me that my ongoing saga of like Matt Damon coming out as a guest for Jimmy Kimmel is the Battle for Eternia review. I have the new camera lens, though, from the Overhead. Boy, howdy, is it good. Check out my latest 2 reviews. We'll use that, and we'll get that going here soon. Okay, anyway, next game. What do we got going on? We have Coal Baron. Coal Baron, another in the midweight Euros, being brought back. This is originally like a 2003 game, 2013, I think. I'm screwing that date up. And this one is coming back, and it's a deluxified version of a out-of-print midweight Euro game that is supposedly in desire, but I have no idea. I'd actually never heard of this one prior to last week when doing the upcoming video, but now you can see that it's already got almost $20,000 in the first day, so it's clearly got some interest there with 254 people. But that's sort of the question: is it going to, how high is it going to get up? And it's kind of lost in all of the other ones that are kind of going on right now, even though there's not a whole lot going on. So when you scroll down here, you get a little bit of a sense of the overview of this game. So essentially what you're doing is you're coal barons, right? Like, you're trying to dig up various types of coal, you're trying to deliver it, you're trying to fill orders that are going to be able to be acquired as you go along in a 3-round game system. And so as you're going around in these 3 rounds, the variable end game scoring of each round is going to be slightly different. In the first round, it's just like who has the most type of each coal. The second round is going to add something additional to that as well. So you're going to have 1 and 2, and then third round is going to add a third thing. So you're going to have 1, 2, and 3 essentially for what you're scoring, and they run it down here. But essentially what you're doing is you're putting these resources out into action spots, and you can place your workers onto other action spots that are actually full. It just costs you like an extra worker or a worker plus 1 essentially of how many are already out there. You're also going to be having to manage how you're going to be able to get the coal back by digging tunnels and using resources to get them back in the first place, as well as just bringing it back to be able to store it so that you can fulfill those orders. So you want to have the most lucrative orders by the end of 3 rounds, as I mentioned, and you're going to be having 3 different categories that's going to be affecting you at the end. 75 euros here is going to be the price point, which again speaks to what the difference of Arborea was. This is more of what I would have expected Arborea to be in, very similarly. And so the fact that it's about that, doesn't surprise me whatsoever. So what you're going to be doing, like it says, worker placements, and then you're going to be transporting, you're going to be stockpiling or getting orders as well. Delivering the orders, though, is ultimately what's important in terms of scoring them at the end. And then it gives you a little bit of summary of how you're going to be building your engine, literally and figuratively speaking here, with money from the bank to pay for your next mine cars and all of the other logistical aspects that you're going to be having to transport, to build, to dig in all of those ways. And so it gives you here, okay, like I said, round 1 scoring, round 2 scoring, and round 3 scoring. And you can see how each one is going to be additive, and there's going to be victory points based on all of those. So this is too heavy for me. Just having looked at the rulebook, looking at through those actions and the determination of the strategy that's going to need to be going along with, coordination of those actions. I can already tell you that this one, unlike Arborea, is probably a little bit too strategery for me, but that's okay because there's clearly a market for it. And this is definitely on the heavier side of things. And you know what? Crowdfunding is bringing it back to life, so take it for what you will. Do you need the new version if you have the old version? That's the only thing I didn't really see being mentioned anywhere down here. They had a couple things marked Kickstarter exclusive here, but if you look at that, it's mostly just deluxifications. So take that for what you will. Do you really need to get it on crowdfunding if you're on the fence? That'd be the only question that I don't really see answered here either. Shipping fee is going to be shipping fee. I mean, it's not inexpensive. So you're going to be looking at $100 for a deluxified Euro, which is, again, what I would typically expect for this. I think Arborea is more of the exception rather than the rule. So take that for what you will. But when you're buying a bunch of games on crowdfunding, how do you split your money? Food for thought. Coal Baron, there you go. Now, heading back over here to Epic Spell Wars of the Battle Wizards Annihilageddon 3 from Cryptozoic. This is just another take on their Cryptozoic Cerebrus engine from a deck building standpoint. You're playing spells, acquiring them, buying loot, legendary items, locations that are all going to be used to do a take that situation as a head-to-head deck builder. Now, what is this one offering that other ones aren't? Well, one of 2 things. One, they're offering you to play as Satan. And the other aspect goes right along with that. It's a one versus all asymmetric deck builder. And the third last new point is that in this one, you don't get eliminated. So that might be more appealing to you if you've looked at this game in the past and been turned off by a player elimination. But you take a dead wizard token, which gives you minus victory points at the end, but also gives you a glyph that allows you to match and roll more dice to get more abilities, more powers, more resources on a turn-by-turn basis. That's the gist of it. And the price point for 375 game cards is actually relatively good. I mean, I'm looking at this and I would have expected it to be higher than $45. $95 gets you the playmat, so I could easily pass that and the sleeves. I have no qualms about that, and just, you know, $45 is a good price point. Now, I'm not really a big fan of the theme. I'm not really a big fan of the over-the-top language and that sort of stuff. And so that is kind of a big turnoff for me. I think the gameplay might hold up. I might like it as a deck builder, but all of the rest of it sort of outweighs that for me personally. Just even things like this on the page, I just don't, I mean, it's just gratuitous. It just doesn't need to be done. And so I have a line elsewhere too. I have a line, and as a parent, I'm starting to get more of that. And so take that for what you will. I know it's a little bit harder to get, I think, at the retail side of things. And especially with some of these unlocks, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case as well. I've seen it go higher than crowdfunding, at least on the secondary market. So that's what it is. I mean, it's a different deck builder, and they say flat out with this third edition that they want to do something different each time around. So this will be significantly different than the first one or two games if you're familiar with those. So if you have interest, give it a look-see. Epic Spell Wars, there you go. That's it. That's the roundup for this week. You know, a lot of interesting stuff. I like talking about the variety of the medium weight Euros, the heavyweight Euros, the light dice chuckers, the light co-ops, everything in between. I love the variety. It gives me so much to look at on a week by week basis, and it exposes me to stuff that I never would have looked at elsewhere or otherwise. So I love it. Hopefully I'll have a video up tomorrow for the upcoming week, because again, these last 2 weeks of January are freaking just ramping up. I didn't think it would happen this much in January, but it is. It is. And we're not even to the last one of the month, which is going to be Andromeda's Edge, but we have the Batman game, we have a new Hero Realms Dungeons game, just among others that are going to be highlighted for next week's iterations. So it's gonna be an expensive month if you have any interests across the board. You know, there's going to be something tempting, and as you saw me, you know, it's Marvel United for me, and so it's going to be probably get the new Marvel United stuff and probably ditch some of the old stuff, because I am not a completionist, as I've said many times in this channel. I will get rid of some of the old expansions that I'm just not as big on. I did it with the first one when the second one came. I'm going to do it with the second one when the third one comes. Right? There you go. This is not Cult of the Keep Everything. This is Cult of the I'm only going to keep stuff if it's freaking awesome and I love it. That's all I got. Stay classy. See you around. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, Patreon, whatever else. I got your back.